Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy.
I ducked out of the office early that day, grabbed her favorite sunflowers from the flower shop on Morrison Street, and called ahead for reservations because Vanessa had casually mentioned 3 weeks ago that she wanted to try their butternut squash risotto. We'd been married 4 years, together for 6 total, and I honestly believed I had this whole marriage thing figured out. The formula seemed straightforward enough. Pay attention to what she says, remember the little details that matter to her, show up when it counts, put in consistent effort. I'd built our entire relationship on that foundation, and for years I thought it was working. The restaurant was buzzing with the usual downtown energy that Wednesday evening. Young professionals unwinding after work, older couples enjoying quiet dinners, the kind of atmosphere that manages to feel both intimate and alive at the same time. We got a table by the window overlooking the street where the lights were just starting to glow in the early autumn darkness. Vanessa looked beautiful in that dark blue dress she'd worn to work, her hair pulled back in that casual style she always wore after a long day at the office. We ordered a bottle of wine, something Italian she'd been wanting to try for weeks. We shared the goat cheese crostini appetizer with honey and herbs, talked about completely normal, everyday things that couples talk about. Her pottery class was going really well. She'd finished 4 new pieces that week and was excited about them. My big project at work was finally wrapping up after months of absolute chaos and late nights. Her best friend Melissa was planning this elaborate engagement party. We needed to do something about the bathroom sink that kept dripping at odd hours. Everything felt completely ordinary. Comfortable in that way long-term relationships naturally become over time. Until I mentioned joining the recreational hockey league. I'm thinking about joining that rec league on Thursday nights, I said, breaking off a piece of the crostini. Marcus from work says they desperately need a left wing, and I haven't played hockey since college. Might be fun to get back into it. Vanessa didn't even look up from her phone. She was scrolling through something, thumb moving absently across the screen in that distracted way people do. Thursdays won't work for me. I set down my wine glass and looked at her. I wasn't asking if it worked for you. I was just mentioning it, telling you what I'm thinking about doing. She set down her phone then, and looked at me with that direct, unwavering gaze she uses when she's being completely honest. The look that says she's thought about something carefully and reached a definitive conclusion. I need you to understand something, Dominic. Being married doesn't automatically put you at the center of my life. I have other priorities that come ahead of you. Thursday is my night for pottery class, and I'm planning to extend it to include the advanced workshop that meets afterward. I need that time for myself. It's important to me. The words landed cleanly, precisely, like a medical diagnosis delivered with professional detachment. At the table next to us, a couple in their 60s was celebrating some anniversary, laughing over champagne and sharing bites of chocolate cake. Behind us, 2 friends were deep in animated conversation about some book they'd both recently read. Normal restaurant sounds, normal evening atmosphere, the usual buzz of life happening around us. And my wife had just calmly informed me that I wasn't her priority. Our risotto arrived right then, steam rising from the bowls and those picturesque wisps. The waiter asked if we needed anything else, if everything looked good. Vanessa said no thank you with a pleasant smile, picked up her fork, took a bite, made a small satisfied sound, and continued eating like she'd just commented on the weather forecast rather than fundamentally redefining the terms of our marriage. That's your choice, I said quietly, mechanically, taking a bite of food I could barely taste through the numbness spreading through me. She blinked, clearly expecting some pushback, an argument, some kind of negotiation or protest. Exactly. I'm glad you understand. I was honestly worried you'd take it the wrong way or get upset about it. The wrong way? As if there was some right way to hear your spouse tell you that you're not important enough to factor into her decision-making process. I signaled for the check. The waiter looked genuinely confused. We'd barely touched our entrees, the food was still steaming, but he brought it over without question, professional to the end. We haven't had dessert yet, Vanessa said, glancing at the menu board. They have that chocolate lava cake you really like. I'm full, I lied. The drive back to our apartment in the Pearl District took about 15 minutes through familiar streets. Vanessa scrolled through Instagram, occasionally showing me photos of pottery pieces she admired. Bowls with interesting glazes, vases with unusual shapes, platters with intricate designs. She seemed genuinely relaxed. Actually relieved even that I'd taken her declaration so well, that I hadn't made it into some big dramatic thing, hadn't created a scene or demanded lengthy explanations. I kept my eyes on the road, navigating the streets I'd driven 1,000 times while my mind worked through what had just happened. This wasn't new information, not really. When I was honest with myself, I'd felt it building for months, maybe even longer. The way she'd casually mentioned she'd planned a girls' weekend to the coast, booking it for the exact same weekend as my college friend Trevor's bachelor party. I'd called Trevor and apologized, made up some excuse about something coming up, listened to the disappointment in his voice as he said it was cool. He understood, even though we both knew I was choosing my wife's plans over his celebration. The fishing trip with my dad I'd canceled because Vanessa needed me home for a dinner party she'd organized, without asking if that date worked for me. Not a dinner party we'd planned together. She'd organized it and informed me about it 3 days before. My own birthday just a few weeks ago, when I'd wanted to have a quiet dinner with a few close friends, and she'd said, "Oh, but I have that conference in Seattle that weekend, remember?" I hadn't remembered because she'd never actually asked if that weekend worked for our schedule. She'd just booked it and expected me to adjust. So I'd spent my 33rd birthday completely alone, ordering Chinese takeout and watching a Blazers game by myself in our apartment. None of it had been deliberately malicious. Vanessa wasn't cruel or intentionally hurtful. She was just intensely self-focused, operating under the unspoken assumption that her priorities were automatically our priorities, that my flexibility was infinite and always available, that my own wants and needs were somehow inherently less pressing or important than whatever she had going on. When we got back to our apartment, she went straight into her elaborate nighttime routine. I could hear the bathroom faucet running, the familiar sound of her electric toothbrush, the cabinet opening and closing repeatedly as she went through her extensive skincare regimen. The same sounds I'd heard literally 1,000 nights before, suddenly feeling completely different, heavier, loaded with new meaning. I sat on the edge of our bed in the dim light thinking. The bedroom was dark except for the small lamp on my nightstand. On her dresser sat a framed photo from our wedding day, both of us laughing with pure joy, my arm around her waist, looking at each other like we'd just discovered something wonderful together. That was 4 years ago. Had I been deluding myself this entire time? If I wasn't the center of her life, if being married didn't obligate her to consider me when making decisions, then logically the reverse had to be equally true. It was simple logic, really, once you thought about it clearly. She'd just established the rules of engagement for our relationship. All I had to do was follow them consistently. No dramatic announcement necessary, no angry confrontation, no ultimatums or threats or demands for change, just a quiet internal shift in how I approached our relationship. I'd spent 4 years being the accommodating one, the flexible one, the one who constantly adjusted and compromised and rearranged my entire life to fit seamlessly into hers. Starting tonight, that changed. She came out of the bathroom in her silk pajamas, the navy blue ones I'd bought her for Christmas last year, climbed into bed like it was any other Wednesday evening, like she hadn't just fundamentally altered our entire relationship dynamic over risotto and wine. "Did you set the alarm?" she asked, pulling the covers up to her chin. "Yeah, good. I have that early pottery delivery tomorrow before work. Some client is picking up 3 custom pieces at 7:30. She kissed my cheek, a habitual gesture of affection that felt completely mechanical now, empty of real meaning. Turned off her lamp. "Night. Night." She settled into sleep quickly, her breathing evening out within just a few minutes. She had that enviable talent. Could fall asleep anywhere, anytime, completely unburdened by overthinking or worry or anxiety. Meanwhile, I lay there in the dark with my eyes wide open, listening to the sounds of the city outside our window. A car passing on the wet street below, someone laughing on the sidewalk. The distant wail of a siren headed somewhere urgent. For her, just another ordinary Wednesday. For me, the night I stopped being the only one who actually cared about us. The next morning started exactly like every morning for the past 4 years. My alarm went off at 6:30 sharp. Vanessa hit snooze twice before finally dragging herself out of bed, stumbling toward the bathroom, still half asleep and barely functional. I made coffee, strong and black the way we both preferred it, and sat at the kitchen table checking my work email and on my phone. She emerged 20 minutes later, already dressed in her work clothes. Black slacks, white blouse, that green cardigan she kept at the office for when the air conditioning ran too cold. That rushed energy she always had in the morning, constantly moving, grabbing her travel mug, her leather bag, her keys from the hook by the front door. "Don't forget my pottery showcase is Saturday evening at 6, she said, pausing in the doorway with her coat half on, "at the studio in Southeast Portland. I think there'll be around 30 people there, maybe more. Some gallery owner from downtown is supposedly coming to look at everyone's work." Normally, yesterday morning even, I would have already had it marked in my calendar with 2 reminders set. I would have already confirmed with her 3 separate times that I'd definitely be there. I would have asked if I should bring anything, offered to help her set up early, inquired about what I should wear. "I'll check my schedule," I said simply, taking another sip of coffee. She actually stopped moving, went completely still, which was genuinely rare for Vanessa in the morning rush. "What do you mean, check your schedule? You've known about this showcase for 2 months now. Did I specifically confirm I'd be there?" She stared at me, trying to read my expression, trying to figure out if I was joking. "You're my husband." "Right, but you made it very clear last night that being married doesn't automatically put me at the center of your life. So I figured I should probably check my other commitments before confirming anything." Her mouth opened slightly, closed, opened again like a fish. I didn't mean..." She trailed off, completely unable to articulate what she actually did mean without directly contradicting her own words from barely 12 hours earlier. "Let me know all the details and I'll see if I can make it work with everything else I have going on," I said, returning my attention to my phone screen. "Fine, whatever." She left, the door closing with noticeably more force than necessary, but not quite a full slam. That would have been too dramatic, too much of an admission that something was wrong. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finishing my coffee in the suddenly quiet apartment, letting the silence settle around me before getting ready for work. Something fundamental had shifted between us. She'd felt it, even if she didn't yet fully understand what it meant or where it was heading. Thursday passed quietly, almost eerily so. We texted back and forth about completely mundane things. Picking up milk from the store, paying the electric bill, surface-level exchanges that carefully avoided the elephant now living in our marriage. That evening, she had pottery class. I stayed home, ordered Thai food from our usual place, watched the Trailblazers game alone on the couch. 2 people, 1 apartment, increasingly separate lives. Friday afternoon around 3, my coworker Marcus stopped by my desk with that casual, hopeful look of someone about to issue an invitation they fully expect will be declined. "Hey, few of us are playing poker tonight at my place over in Northwest. Nothing fancy, just beer and cards and hanging out. You interested in joining?" Marcus had been inviting me to these weekly poker games for months now, maybe close to a year. Every single time, I declined politely. Friday night was supposed to be our night, mine and Vanessa's. Date night or movie night or just staying in together night, quality time as a couple. Except lately, our night had increasingly meant she'd mentioned some event she'd already committed to, some friend who desperately needed her, some class she absolutely wanted to take, and I'd end up sitting alone anyway, ordering delivery and watching whatever game happened to be on television. This time, I didn't hesitate even for a second. "Yeah, I'm in. What time?" His eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. "Really? You're sure your wife won't mind?" I thought about Vanessa's exact words at dinner. "Being married doesn't put you at the center of my life. I have other priorities ahead of you." "Priorities are personal," I said with a slight shrug. Around 5 o'clock, I texted Vanessa, not asking for permission, not requesting approval, just informing her of my plans. "Playing poker with guys from work tonight. Should be home around 11. 3 dots appeared on the screen. Disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared once more. Finally, after nearly a full minute, K, 1 single letter. No questions about where or with whom. No complaints, no guilt trip. Maybe she was actually relieved to have the entire evening to herself. Maybe she didn't care at all. Either way, the message was abundantly clear. Marcus's apartment was typical for a single guy in his early 30s. 3rd floor walk-up, exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture that somehow worked, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in comfortably. 5 guys from work were already there when I arrived carrying a 6-pack. Marcus, Tommy from accounting, Steve and Michael from IT, and Danny, who worked in the building next to ours and had somehow become part of our group over the years. "Sullivan actually showed up," Tommy said, grinning widely and handing me a cold beer from the cooler. "Honestly thought you were an urban legend at this point. The married guy who never comes out." The apartment smelled like pizza and beer, that distinctly masculine scent of guys hanging out. Classic rock played from a Bluetooth speaker in the corner. Cards were already spread out on the table, poker chips sorted into neat piles. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. Just a bunch of guys in their 30s taking a break from work and wives and mortgages and adult responsibilities. We played for 3 solid hours. Terrible poker, honestly. Everyone bluffing way too much, making obvious tells, laughing and joking when they should have been serious and focused. I lost about $40 and genuinely didn't care, even a little bit. It wasn't about the cards or the money or winning. It was about remembering what it felt like to just exist without constantly monitoring someone else's mood, someone else's needs, someone else's ever-changing schedule. "You seem different tonight," Marcus said during a break while Tommy dealt the next hand. "More relaxed or something, less stressed." "Yeah," I agreed. "Feels really good to just hang out without overthinking everything." "Marriage treating you well?" he asked casually. I thought carefully about how to answer that loaded question. "Marriage is teaching me some important lessons about priorities and boundaries." He nodded like he understood, though he couldn't possibly have known what I actually meant by that. I got home at 11:15 and the apartment was quiet and dim, just one lamp on in the living room casting soft light. Vanessa was curled up on the couch in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, wineglass in hand, watching some reality show about people trying to flip houses in impossible time frames. "How was your evening?" she asked, not looking away from the television screen. "Good, really good, actually. How was yours?" "Fine." That was it, the entire conversation. No accusations, no guilt trip, no interrogation about where I'd been or who I'd been with. Just 2 people who'd lived completely separate evenings under the same roof. Saturday morning, Vanessa was already awake when I finally rolled out of bed around 8. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, working intensely on something for the showcase. Probably the written descriptions for each pottery piece, the price list, that artist's statement she'd been agonizing over for weeks. "So you'll definitely be there at 6 tonight, right?" she asked without bothering to look up from her screen. "The studio officially opens to guests at 6, but I really need to be there by 5 to set everything up properly. You could come early if you want to help me." I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd already made earlier. "Actually, I'm going to the baseball game today. Trailblazers are playing a doubleheader. Tommy managed to get us really good tickets." Her hands stopped moving on the keyboard. She looked up slowly, deliberately. "What about my showcase? I checked my schedule like you suggested. Turns out I had plans already scheduled for today. But this is genuinely important to me, Dominic. This gallery owner could actually lead to something real, like actual paid commissions, real opportunities. I need you there for support." I sat down directly across from her with my coffee mug. "I know it's important to you. I genuinely hope it goes really well. Make sure to send me some pictures of how everything looks all set up." "You're seriously choosing a baseball game over my showcase?" "I'm honoring a commitment I made to other people. Same thing you do with your pottery class, your weekend workshops, your networking events. That's completely different, and you know it." "How exactly is it different?" I asked calmly. She opened her mouth to explain, then closed it slowly. "'Cause it wasn't actually different at all, and we both knew it perfectly well. She just didn't like being on the receiving end of the exact same treatment she'd been giving me." I spent the entire afternoon at the game with Tommy, Steve, and Michael from the poker group. Perfect early October weather. Sunny but not hot. Just enough breeze to keep things comfortable. We had seats along the third baseline, close enough to hear the crack of the bat, the players shouting to each other across the field. Overpriced hot dogs and beer that somehow tasted better than they had any right to taste. The game was incredibly close, back and forth the entire time, the kind that keeps you genuinely on the edge of your seat. Bottom of the 9th inning, tied 3-3. Their rookie center fielder somehow launched a ball deep into the right field seats. Walk-off home run. The entire stadium absolutely erupted. 35,000 people screaming simultaneously, jumping, hugging complete strangers. Pure uncomplicated joy. "Marriage looks good on you, man," Tommy said afterward as we filed out with the crowd, still riding the high of that dramatic win. "You seem way more relaxed than I've seen you in years. More like your old self from before." If he only knew that the relaxation didn't come from marriage itself. It came from finally stopping the exhausting effort to bend myself into impossible shapes to fit someone else's life. Sunday morning, Vanessa was noticeably different, quiet in a way that felt deliberate and loaded, heavy with things she wasn't saying out loud. I woke up to find her already awake, sitting propped against the headboard with her phone, scrolling, but not really looking at anything meaningful, just the repetitive motion of scrolling. A nervous habit, I recognized. Morning, morning, I said. Morning. Flat, distant, devoid of warmth. I got up, went through my usual routine, shower, getting dressed, heading to the kitchen to start the coffee maker. She followed a few minutes later, wrapped tightly in her bathrobe, her expression somewhere between genuinely confused and deeply hurt. "How did the showcase go?" I asked while measuring out coffee grounds. "Fine," she said, a single syllable, clipped short, no elaboration. "Did the gallery owner actually show up?" "Yes, she took my business card, said she'd be in touch soon." The words had absolutely no enthusiasm in them. None of the excited energy Vanessa usually radiated when talking about her pottery work. We sat at the kitchen table with our steaming coffee mugs, the Sunday newspaper spread out between us like a buffer. But neither of us actually reading anything. The silence stretched out uncomfortably, tense in a way it used to never be. Finally, she spoke. "You've been going out a lot lately, more than usual." I looked up from the sports section I'd been pretending to read. "Yeah, it's really nice. Reconnecting with friends, doing things I used to enjoy. I'd honestly forgotten how much I enjoy just hanging out with the guys. I thought maybe we could do something today, together, like we used to." The way she emphasized together felt weighted, almost pleading. "That sounds great for you," I said casually, returning my attention to the newspaper. "I'm meeting my dad for breakfast at 9, then spending the afternoon helping him finally fix his deck. The wood's been rotting for months, and he's been asking me for help forever. Since when do you have standing plans with your dad every Sunday? Since I decided to start honoring my commitments to other people, in my life too, not just you. We used to do things together every Sunday, before all this. Well, before other things took priority. Your things, your schedule, your needs." I said it without any anger, just stating observable facts. "I used to see my dad literally every Sunday morning for breakfast. Then you started planning things on Sundays. Brunch dates with your friends, pottery workshops that ran all day, spontaneous day trips to the coast. And every single time, I'd cancel on him. For an entire year straight, I canceled on my own father. I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to explicitly ask. I thought that's what being a good husband meant. Being flexible, being accommodating, putting your partner's needs and wants ahead of your own needs, always." I set down the newspaper and looked at her directly. "But you taught me very clearly that's not actually how marriage works, so I'm adjusting my approach accordingly." "That's not what I meant," she said quietly, wrapping both hands around her coffee mug like she was suddenly cold despite the warm apartment. "Then what did you mean exactly?" Found complete total silence. She had absolutely no answer that wouldn't directly contradict everything she'd said at that restaurant 4 days ago. I stood up, rinsed my mug carefully in the sink. "I'm meeting Dad at 9. I'll probably be back sometime this evening." "Dominic?" "Yeah?" She looked like she desperately wanted to say something important, something meaningful, that would somehow fix whatever was rapidly happening between us. But the words simply didn't come. "Nothing. Tell your dad I said hello." I left her sitting alone at the kitchen table, coffee cooling, forgotten in her hands, finally getting a genuine taste of exactly what I'd been feeling for months. The following week, I made some significantly bigger changes. Monday, during my lunch break, I called our financial advisor and scheduled an appointment for Wednesday afternoon. Vanessa had absolutely no idea. Wednesday, I sat in Richard's office downtown and calmly explained exactly what I wanted done. Separate all the joint investment accounts. Create an individual retirement account in my name only. Remove Vanessa completely as the beneficiary on my life insurance policy. Split it evenly between my parents and my younger sister instead. He looked visibly uncomfortable, shifting in his expensive leather chair. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Dominic? This is a pretty significant change." "Completely sure. If marriage doesn't make us each other's priority, then we should probably plan our financial futures individually. It only makes logical sense." I signed all the paperwork. Everything was completely legal, perfectly logical, and entirely defensible, using her own stated philosophy about marriage and priorities. Thursday evening, the mail arrived while I was in the kitchen making dinner. Salmon and roasted vegetables, nothing fancy. Vanessa walked in from work and immediately saw the large envelope from our investment firm sitting on the counter. She opened it right there, read through the documents for several long minutes in complete silence. "What is this?" she finally asked. I didn't look up from cutting vegetables on the cutting board. "Account restructuring, standard financial planning. You moved half our retirement savings into an individual account, just like that?" "My retirement savings into my individual account," I corrected calmly, still focused on chopping. "Important distinction. But we're married, Dominic. We're supposed to make these kinds of major financial decisions together. That's how marriage works." I finally looked up at her. "According to you, being married doesn't make us each other's priority. So I figured we should probably plan our financial futures individually too. Separate priorities, separate planning. That's not what I meant at all. Then what exactly did you mean?" Silence again. She couldn't explain without fundamentally contradicting herself, without admitting she wanted different rules for herself than for me. I returned to methodically slicing vegetables. She stood there at the counter, hands shaking slightly, staring at the financial documents that proved I'd been listening very carefully to absolutely everything she'd said. I joined that Thursday night hockey league Marcus had mentioned, signing up for the full season. I registered for weekend woodworking classes that deliberately conflicted with her Saturday morning farmer's market routine that she loved. I booked a 3-day fishing trip with my dad for Columbus Day weekend. The exact same weekend, Vanessa had already mentioned wanting to visit her sister in Seattle. When she brought up her plans now, I simply said, "Have fun with that," and left it there. Friday of the second week, she brought up her best friend's upcoming engagement party. "We really need to get Melissa and Josh a nice gift. Something meaningful from both of us. You should get them whatever you think is appropriate and thoughtful. We're both invited to the party, Dominic. I haven't actually decided yet if I'm going or not. Need to check what else I have going on." She looked up sharply from her laptop. "What do you mean you haven't decided? They're my best friends. You've known them for 5 years. "Right, they're your friends. I'll definitely send my congratulations and best wishes, but I'm not committing to actually being there until I see what else conflicts." Later that night, I went out with my hockey teammates for drinks after practice. Got home around midnight. Vanessa was still awake, clearly having waited up for me. "We need to talk about all of this," she said from her position on the couch. "About what specifically?" "About you never being here anymore. About how you're always gone." I set my keys on the counter deliberately. "I'm here right now, but I have my own life too. My own interests, my own friends, my own priorities. Isn't that exactly what you wanted?" The pattern continued consistently through week 3. Hockey every Thursday night without fail. Woodworking every other Saturday. Poker games twice a month with the guys. The fishing trip with my dad went ahead exactly as planned, despite her obvious disappointment and subtle hints that I should cancel. I missed her birthday dinner with friends because of a legitimate scheduling conflict. I skipped her pottery studio's fundraiser because I already had other plans I'd committed to. When she tried to coordinate schedules or plan things together, I'd say, "Sounds good," in a pleasant tone without actually committing to anything specific. I wasn't being mean or vindictive or cruel. I was simply treating my time and energy the way she'd explicitly taught me time should be treated, as a personal resource to be allocated according to individual priorities, not shared obligations. She started checking her phone constantly, compulsively, especially when I didn't text back immediately. She'd hover near the door whenever I was getting ready to leave, like she wanted desperately to ask where I was going, but couldn't quite form the question without sounding controlling. Her confidence, that easy certainty she'd displayed at the restaurant 3 weeks ago, was visibly cracking. Tuesday night of the 4th week, I was getting dressed for dinner with my brother Ethan, who was in town visiting from San Francisco for a few days. Vanessa had been watching me from the bed, laptop open in front of her, but clearly not actually working on anything. "Another night out?" she asked, trying hard to sound casual and failing. "Yeah, haven't seen Ethan in 6 months. He's only here for 2 days. What about me? I'm here, right here." I paused, shirt halfway buttoned, and looked at her. "What about you? We could order from that oyster place you love. Watch that documentary series we talked about starting. Spend time together. You don't need me there to enjoy your evening. You've made that pretty clear. But I want you here. I want to spend time with you." This was genuinely new. The first time since that dinner at Harvest Moon that she'd actually admitted to wanting my time, my presence, my attention. I finished buttoning my shirt methodically. That's sweet, but I already made these plans with my brother. Cancel them. Please. I stopped and looked at her directly. Why would I cancel my plans? Because I'm your wife. Doesn't that matter? Right, but being married doesn't make you my priority, remember? You explained that to me pretty clearly and specifically. She physically flinched like I'd slapped her across the face. That's not fair. What's not fair about it? I'm living exactly how you said we should live. You established the rules. Stop throwing my words back at me like weapons. I'm not throwing them back, I'm applying them equally to both of us. That's called fairness. I grabbed my keys from the dresser. Wait, she said, voice noticeably smaller now, almost fragile. Can we please talk when you get back? If you're still awake, sure. Dinner with Ethan was genuinely great. We went to this Italian place in the Pearl District, talked about his new job in tech, his recent breakup with his long-term girlfriend, reminisced about the old days when we both thought we had life completely figured out. He noticed something different about me. You seem good, Dom, he said over dessert and coffee. More centered, more like yourself. Yeah, I think I am. Things good with Vanessa? They're honest, at least. Finally honest. When I got home around 10:30, Vanessa was still wide awake. She'd changed into sweatpants and was sitting on the couch with wine, phone face down beside her in a deliberate gesture. How was your evening? I asked, setting my keys down. Lonely. That single word hung heavy in the air between us. I sat in the armchair across from her, deliberately not beside her on the couch, like I used to automatically do. It feels like you've completely disappeared, she said quietly, voice thick with emotion. Like you're gone? I'm right here, sitting right in front of you. No, you're not. You're physically here, but you're gone. You've checked out emotionally. Interesting observation. Now you know exactly how I felt for the past year and a half. Don't do this. Do what exactly? Act like I don't matter to you at all. I leaned back in the chair, studying her. You matter. You just don't get to matter more to me than you're willing to let me matter to you. That's not how partnerships work. The silence stretched out painfully. She was crying now, quiet tears she kept wiping away with the back of her hand. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. You miss having someone who makes you their priority while not having to reciprocate that same level of commitment. That's not true. That's not fair. When's the last time you changed your plans for me? I asked directly. She couldn't answer. Just sat there crying silently. When's the last time you chose spending time with me over something else you wanted to do? More silence. When's the last time you made a decision based on what was best for us as a couple, instead of what was most convenient or beneficial for you individually? She was crying harder now, shoulders shaking. I didn't realize I was doing that, being that selfish. You weren't being selfish, I said calmly. You were being clear and honest about your priorities. I'm just respecting those stated priorities and setting equivalent ones of my own. But I don't want this. I don't want us to be like this. You don't want what? Independence? Individual priorities? Because that's specifically what you asked for. I wanted balance. I thought I wanted balance. No, I said quietly but firmly. You wanted me to sacrifice and adjust while you didn't have to. That's not balance. That's one-sided. She stood up abruptly, walked to the kitchen, leaned against the refrigerator with her shoulders shaking visibly. For 4 years, I've been the only one making sacrifices. Constantly adjusting my schedule, canceling plans with friends and family, putting your needs first every single time. I thought that's what partners did for each other. I stood up too. But you showed me very clearly that marriage doesn't require that level of commitment or consideration. I was wrong, she said, voice breaking. I was so wrong. Were you actually wrong, or are you just uncomfortable with the consequences of your own philosophy? Both, she admitted. I was genuinely wrong, and I absolutely hate how this feels. How we are now. Good. Then now you understand exactly how I felt every single time I came second to your pottery class, your girls' weekends, your networking events, your spontaneous plans with friends. I want to fix this. Please tell me how to fix this. I walked toward the stairs. Wanting and doing are completely different things. I need actions, not words. Tell me how. Give me specific instructions. I can't tell you how. You have to figure out for yourself if you actually want a real partnership or if you just want things to go back to how they were before, when it was comfortable for you. What's the difference? A real partnership means we both sacrifice sometimes. We both prioritize each other's needs. We both make choices based on what's best for us as a unit, not just what's most convenient for me or most convenient for you. I can do that. I promise I can. I need to see it consistently, not just hear promises. Actions matter more than words. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. How long will this take? As long as it takes for me to genuinely trust that this is real change and not just you being temporarily uncomfortable. I walked toward the stairs leading to our bedroom. I'm going to bed. Hockey practice starts at 6 tomorrow. Can we please talk more tomorrow? If you want to. I left her to standing in the kitchen, finally beginning to understand what she'd done to us. Over the next few weeks, things slowly began to change. Not in my life. I kept my limits strong, stuck to my own routine, and stayed grounded in my new balance. The real change came from Vanessa. Late Thursday in the 5th week, I got home from hockey practice and found her cooking. The smell filled the whole place. Steak with garlic butter, mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts with bacon. My favorite meal. She hadn't made it in a long time. I skipped pottery tonight, she said as she set the plates down. I wanted to cook for my husband. I wanted us to spend time together. I didn't rush to believe it. It smells great, I said, keeping my guard up. At dinner, she asked about hockey. Real questions. She listened, followed up, and showed true interest. When she talked about work, she didn't focus only on herself. She talked about money, plans, and what it meant for both of us. The next week, her best friend's engagement party came up again. This time she asked in a new way. Will you come with me? She said. I really want you there. Why? Yes? Because I want to be with you. I want my friends to see us together. Happy, like before. I said yes. At the party, she stayed close the whole night. No drifting across the room. No work talk. She held my hand, introduced me proudly as her husband, and made sure I felt included. We left early because we both wanted to. Thanks for coming, she said in the car. I actually had fun with you there. It was nice, I said. In week 7, she got invited to a pottery retreat in the mountains. The old Vanessa would have booked it right away and told me later. This time, she came to me first. There's a pottery retreat next weekend, she said. But you wanted to hike Mount Hood. The weather looks perfect. You should go if you want, I said. I want to hike with you more, she replied. So, we went hiking. It was the first full weekend we'd spent together in months. She stayed present the whole time. Her phone stayed away. We talked about hopes, ideas, and a future we might build together. Not plans set in stone, real shared dreams. By week 8, even my family noticed. At my sister's baby shower, Vanessa came without complaint. She helped plan, bought a thoughtful gift, talked with everyone, and seemed truly happy to be there. My mom pulled me aside. She seems different, calmer, more involved. She's trying, I said. For real. And you? Yeah, my mom asked. Are you happy? I'm getting there, I said, slowly. 2 months after our talk at Harvest Moon on a quiet Sunday morning, Vanessa folded her newspaper and looked at me. I've been thinking, she said. About what? About having a baby, starting a family. I almost dropped my coffee. She had always said she wasn't ready. Work came first. Timing was never right. I was waiting for a perfect moment that doesn't exist, she said. The right time is when we're ready together. And I think I am now. If you are. Why now? I asked. Because I finally understand what it means to build a life with someone. Not side by side, together. We talked for hours about kids, about values, about the life we wanted. For the first time ever, she said we more than I. You hurt me, and I said later. That night and long before that. I know, she said, and I'm truly sorry. Not sorry about the fallout. Sorry for how blind I was to what I was doing to you. To us. How do I know this isn't just fear of being alone? You don't. Not yet, but I'll show you. As long as it takes. 6 months later, our marriage looked completely different. Thursdays were flexible, sometimes hockey, sometimes date nights, sometimes our own hobbies. But everything was talked through. We planned together. Vanessa was 3 months pregnant. We were house hunting outside Portland. Yards, parks, schools, space for a family. She hadn't erased herself. She made room for us. One spring evening, we sat on our apartment steps watching the sunset turn the city gold. She leaned into me, my arm around her. her hand on her growing belly. You know what's funny? I said. What? You got what you asked for back then. Total freedom, full independence. You just didn't know you didn't want it. She thought for a moment. I wanted freedom, she said, but I also wanted you fully devoted to me. I wanted everything without giving back. And now I want partnership. I want us. She looked at me and I saw something new. Not just love, choice, respect, commitment. Thank you for not walking away, she said. Thank you for choosing us, I replied. The woman who once said marriage didn't center her life now stood beside me as an equal in all things. Sometimes people have to lose something to see its worth. Sometimes they need to feel unseen to understand what it means to truly see someone. I learned that self-respect is not up for debate. Vanessa learned that real independence means choosing what matters most and giving to it fully. And what mattered most to both of us was each other.